3, 2.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jeff, Junior Hockey Advisor. It is Sunday night. It's time to start talking some hockey. I'm so glad you're on. I already got a nice little group going, and we're not even 15 seconds in. So thank you for joining. We're going to talk about a lot of things tonight. We're really going to jump into what's coming right around the corner. Spring. We've got playoffs. We've got pre-drafts. We've got drafts. We've got tenders. We've got spring camps. We've got getting ready for next year already. And the plan, the thoughts, the process, just want to talk it out. I don't have, a calculated agenda of topics, but I figured between you and us, or you and I, we'll come up with something tonight that we can discuss this on and we can talk it through. I wanted to talk first and start off first with a couple weeks ago, I jumped on, I'm just grabbing my notes from the back part of my desk here. We talked a little bit about the tender process and how the tender process works in the North American Hockey League. And before I get rolling too far, I'm Jeff Colson. We've got a lot of new people coming on every week. I run Junior Hockey Advisor. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube. We have a website called juniorhockeyadvisor.com. Please like us. Please follow us. Please subscribe to us, especially on YouTube. You guys all know that I'm trying to grow a YouTube audience, and it's not the demographics of Facebook. Facebook is really good to us. And I got to be honest with you, YouTube is a slow crawl for us, where other people, it seems to be a little bit faster. Been doing this for 30 years. I work as a player development director for a team in the North American Hockey League. But I've been a coach. I've been a general manager. I've been a parent. I've had both of my kids go on to the college level and play. And have successful, youth and junior and college experiences. So I've been at this from a lot of different angles, and I want to share what I know with you. I want to share, what I've learned, my pitfalls, where I've made mistakes, and where others I've watched and witnesses make mistakes too. So that's why we're here. That's what we do. So let me jump right in and talk to you. First of all, North American Hockey League. There's been roughly, now I don't have the statistics right in front of me to give you, exact numbers, because I get these numbers that come to me that I use, but I'm not sharing names, but I'll share overall pictures for you, just so you can kind of spell this out and get an idea. There is roughly 180 kids that have been tendered so far in the North American Hockey League. Well, what does that mean? Well, of that number, about 65 to 70, or about 17, 18% each, are Minnesota high school and prep. So everybody thinks that there's a huge number of prep. Now, there might be a swing towards filling the last spots in the North American tender process with some people that are coming in from the prep world. There'll definitely be some that'll come in from the Minnesota high school world. There's still a lot of players there that have not been picked up yet. But overall, the number is pretty significant towards Tier 1 players. Now, obviously, there's two leagues that get the most attention, and we've talked about this before. The NAPHL, the North American Prospect Hockey League, gets a ton of attention through the tender process, and that is because there's a mandated amount of tenders that are used by the North American Hockey League, by each team, for that league. So you get teams that are on top that are doing really well, that actually get a lot of tenders, right off the bat, boom. And they're successful. People go after those select teams that are on top of that division, or on top of that league, I should say, and grab those players. So if you have, there are 29 teams right now, I think there is, playing in the North American Hockey League, and there's 4 or 5 really good teams in the NAPHL, then there's some middle teams and there's some lower teams. Everybody's going to go after those top teams first. I wanted to share a couple things with you about the overall numbers. Once again, 17, 18% apiece, Minnesota high school prep. Okay, now, if I'm not going to pull this up, but I'm going to look at it while I'm speaking to you. I've got in front of me the midget major U18 top 10. Now, if you don't know who's in the top 10 right now, it's Shattuck, Mount St. Charles, North Star, top 3. Okay, just in Shattuck, Mount St. Charles, and North Star, how many players just in those 3 teams do you think are tendered already? Well, the number's 20, so they're averaging just about 7 players apiece, just on the top 3 teams in the league area, in the rankings, the My Hockey rankings. The top 3 teams, and I know for a fact that won't be I shouldn't say I know for a fact because I don't know for a fact, but I do know the odds are highly likely that we're not done with those 3 teams, that's just where the number is right now. So when I talk all the time about, hey, look, the way this works, if you're going to play in that league, just like the USHL, just like the BCHL, if you're going to play in these leagues, you have to be in a situation where you're putting yourself on the better teams. The top 10 right now of that is Shattuck, Mount St. Charles, North Star, Yale, St. Louis Blues, Bishop Kearney Selects, Long Island, Minnesota Elite, Oakland, and the Buffalo Regals. Now, I've got a rub. I've had this rub for a long time. There should be a separate U18 league for Shattuck, Mount St. Charles, North Star Christian, Bishop Kearney. They should all be in their own separate league. Call it whatever you want, but come on. Shattuck and Mount St. Charles, North Star, they're all academies. They're brick and mortar. They play by a different set of recruiting rules. They have advantages that other programs don't have, with very few, if no disadvantages, going up against the true U18 model. I'd like to see those separated, but that's another show. That's another time. Of those top 10, we really can't tell you everything about Yale yet. We can't really tell you everything about Bishop Kearney or the Minnesota Elite. And the reason is because in the Buffalo Regals. So there's 4 teams there that are a little hard to tell where the amount of players that are tendered or that are going to be drafted to the North American Hockey League are coming from. And the reason is because the Buffalo Regals, it's all prep kids from all over the place, Salisbury, a few other places. You got the Minnesota Elite, which is all Minnesota high school players. So it's very difficult to figure out exactly where they're at. And then if you just go down the list on these, it's Bishop Kearney Selects is a prep school. Yale's in the same boat. They have a lot of players that are playing in that prep world. So if you've got all these players that are segregated out on other teams, and they get their tender as they're playing for, once again, for Salisbury, let's say, it's very difficult to cross-check them back or verify them back with their youth team. So the number, though, is close to 60 players in that top 10 have already been, in the draft. So that means there's 30+%, 34%, something like that. The number's pretty darn high, come from the top 10. So 30%, I know there's crossover because I told you Minnesota prep number or high school numbers and Minnesota prep numbers, 17, 18% apiece. And there's preps in that top 10. We know that. But if you just segregate out the top 10, we're not even talking about the top 20, the top 30. We're just talking about the top 10. You're talking about a very large percentage of the players come from that area. So once again, I try to explain how the process works as far as statistics, as far as flow, as far as process. You're always going to see people go to your top teams first, and a marginal player on a top team has a bigger advantage than a marginal player on a top 50 team. Okay, that's just the way it is. You have to know how the process works and where these numbers are going. So let's take a second just to see who's out there and who's on. Let me get organized for a second and bring up our list of people here and see who we've got and see if anybody is checking in with us already. Wow, got a big crowd. Okay, good to see Rich in from Potsdam. We've got Danielle in from Colorado. We got Danny in from Quebec. And we got a few other people on too. We've got Andy coming in from Knoxville, if I didn't say that already, and Colleen coming in from Pennsylvania. Make sure if you got questions on any of this, please throw them on the sheet right now, and I'll jump on and answer as many as I can here. Mark's coming in from Virginia. Good to see you. New York City's on. Paul's in from Mass. Great to see the group coming in. We've got really strong numbers of people watching it. So watching the live stream tonight. So, hey, President's Day tomorrow. I should I should do a little thing on President's Day as far as the amount of. I've been very, very fortunate. My time in the Marine Corps, I got to actually meet the first president. Didn't meet George Washington. The first Bush. I met George Bush when I was the president. I got put on a special detail. He came in for an air show when I was down in Tennessee, and I got put on a special detail where I got to actually meet and greet him, say hi, shake his hand. 15 seconds of glory. But over a period of time, I've had a chance to meet, both Bushes. I got a chance to meet Dick Cheney, the vice president. Got a chance to meet Bill Clinton. Got a chance to meet. I know I'm missing a president or two that we got a chance to meet. My father was the national commander for the VFW for a few years, and during that period of time, every time there was a national convention, one of the presidents would come in, and I got a chance to be in the front row. My youngest son actually almost created a national situation because he was throwing his grapes that were cut into quarters and halves. We put a little Tupperware together because when you go in to see these events where one of the presidents come in, you got to get there like 2 hours early, and you can't leave. So once you're in, you're in. You can't come back in and out. So we had packed up some sliced grapes for the kids. And so we're right in the front row. And then they got one of those like rock concert grates in front of us. So, you're between the stage and the podium. There's probably 10 or 15 feet there. And my son's throwing his grapes on the floor. So when Dick Cheney came down to meet and greet in the front row, which he's a character in himself. If you ever remember the old Batman show, the old one with the penguin, with the little cigar or the cigarette holder in his mouth and the top hat, that was him all the way. I couldn't get that image out of my mind, but all these grapes are down there, and one of the rookie Secret Service guys, I thought he was going to dive on the floor and take one for the team. He didn't know what they were. Took a veteran to come over and kick him out of the way and go, it's okay. But, Secret Service was doing their old talking in their wrists in front of us and, pushing people away because of the sliced grapes on the floor. So it was fun. Good story. Bill Clinton. If I got time at the end, I'll tell you a Bill Clinton story that you might like. Non-political, non-political for my part. I try to keep hockey politics and politics out of this so that we can all have fun on this. So let's see if we got any questions coming in. Okay, it says, my son is a junior in high school. He would love to play D3 hockey. What should he do before his senior season? Well, once again, as much as I keep saying, get on the best team you can get on. That's the first thing. I know it sounds, that's harder than you think. Well, it depends on how much work you put into it. Well, first of all, skill dictates anything I say. Skill dictates, okay? If you're a good player, you're a good player. And if you're a good player and can play at that level, it's going to help you make it. Not every good player gets discovered. I mean, right now, I tell you, I'm watching video. I'm in rinks. I'm on the phone daily. I put 40, 50, 60 hours into looking for the best players in North America. Okay. And we've got a team of scouts and we have 2 coaches, and our head coach knows everybody. So everybody's calling the head coach. And then I'm talking to advisors and U18 coaches, and I'm talking to lower level junior coaches all the time. Every day. Now think about this. I'm doing this all the time. I am in the trenches all the time. We've got scouts in the field doing this all the time. We've got a coaching staff that's connected doing this all the time. But every single day, there's another player that pops up that's extremely good and warrants us taking a look at him to see if we can either recruit him to our team or if he's worthy of playing at this level. And he is. Okay, he is. There's players like that every day. So you think about the course of the year, and somebody's giving me a name that we're tracking down that we didn't catch, that was playing over here or playing over there. Or, we didn't see him the day he was there because he was sick. We didn't see him because he had a high school prom that day, or whatever the case may be. But there's that many good players out there. So let's say all things equal. What are the kids that push through? The kids that push through are the ones that get name recognition. I keep saying this over and over again. How do you get name recognition? You send out emails, and you don't stop with 1. You don't stop with 2. It's a marketing campaign. You put out email Yeah, I'd say once a week is overkill. Although we've got a couple kids that email us their schedule and their performance results every week, and we get them. I read them. If he sends me another video, there's one kid that sends me a little clip of video. I watch the clip to see how he did. Okay, and to be honest with you, there's sometimes he shouldn't be sending me this stuff. There's some things that he sends that I'm like, maybe you should have left that one on the editing room floor there. But my point on this is, it's the ones that are continuously reaching out to the teams. It's the ones that are calling, texting, videoing, playing great, and asking their coach to reach out. If they're working with an advisor, they're having that advisor reach out. If they're working with a skills instructor, they're having that skills instructor reach out. Because this is all about name recognition. I'll get a skills instructor go, hey, did you hear about this kid? Or did you see this kid play? And I'll go, no, tell me about him. Boom, I'm writing down some notes on a kid, right? The amount of lists that I have from different people, and on my system, I've got lists by advisors, by U18 coaches, from my head coach that's in our program, from our assistant coach. I've got a list of all of them on what players they think are good. And then we triangulate them with what I see, and then our scouts. And that's how we build this model. We've got D1 coaches going, hey, you should really take a look at this guy. It happens all the time where you get this vast amount of players. But how do you get into that person's head? Because maybe that D1 coach was going out to watch because he got an email, and that's why we got a hold of him, because of an email from that D1 coach. I had a U18 coach tell me about a player that was playing in juniors in Canada. And I had a U18 coach go, hey, look, this kid emailed me last year. I just remembered about him, and I happened to catch one of their games up there this weekend, and he's really good. You might want to take a look at him. This happens all the time. So you don't know how somebody's going to find you. You have to go out there and put it in. So let me give you a little more specifics. Junior to senior year, you want to play D3. The odds of playing right after your senior year of playing D3 are slim. And let me explain why. If you're looking to play for a quality D3 team and you're a very good player, there's a very good player playing juniors that's 3 years older than you, that's bigger, stronger, and more mature, has more experience. So if you think you're going to walk out, now there are some, but the number is very, very thin of the players that walk right out of high school and go play D3 hockey. There's a lot of players that go play ACHA hockey right out of high school, and they don't want to go to juniors, they can't afford to go to juniors, or they've got the school in mind they want to go to. ACHA school has already been lined up for them. That's a school they've always wanted to go to, where it fits their needs, and they've got a quality hockey team and they want to go play there. But let's get this very clear. The vast majority of players don't walk out of high school after their senior year right into a D3 program. It doesn't happen. So the first thing I got to say is be careful on that thought process. You may want to back up and say, okay, we're going to have to play 1 to 3 years of juniors to play on a really good quality D3 program. 1 or 2 years of juniors, if you're a quality junior player, you can play D3 somewhere, but you're going to play 2 to 3 years of juniors if you're going to walk into, let's say a top 20 D3 program. Now, there's 80, 90 teams out there. There's a lot of hockey, and there's different aspects. And, remember, there's going to be one of you out there that goes, oh, yeah, well, I know a guy that did this. And I'm telling you what the trends are. I'm telling you what the numbers are. I'm telling you what the expectations are. And you can say, well, you're quoting stats. Well, it's stats that I live every day. So I can tell you that for fact, the majority of players out there play juniors for 2 to 3 years before they go play at the D3 level. A lot of discussion this week on the board too. And I know I'm getting off a little bit, and I'll get right back to the next question. A lot of discussion on the board this week about ACHA versus D3 hockey. I'm going to tell you right now, just pull up the rosters. There are great ACHA hockey teams, but a great ACHA hockey team might have a kid that was playing college hockey at a higher level that drops down, might have a couple really good, tier 1 hockey players that come down for whatever reason. And I've pointed that out before. I know a couple teams on the East Coast that have some outstanding hockey players on the roster that were injured right at the end of the U18 career, or something happened in juniors that took them back closer to home. But that's the rare anomaly. You look at a D3 roster, and you can always find that one roster that you can prove me wrong with. Don't get me wrong. It's like an AHL team to an NHL team. Okay, an NHL team can be beat by an AHL team. That could happen. And there could be that one AHL team that's just loaded with super talent that's better than the really rotten NHL team this year. That could happen. Most likely not, but it could happen. Okay? And you take away the schools that are getting ready or are on the verge to go to NCAA Division I hockey. Lindenwood's a perfect example. Long Island in the past has been a good example. Penn State before they jumped. Arizona before they jumped. All those programs were just loaded with talent because kids knew that they were going to go D1 and they wanted to get in line. They wanted to be there. But take those programs aside and look at the rest. There's 500 plus, 600 plus ACHA programs out there that dilutes the amount of talent first by the numbers versus 80, 90 teams at the D3 level. And then you look at the D3 rosters and you see, the top 20 teams are chock full of null guys. They're chopped through of BCHL guys, a couple USHL guys, not a lot. They've got D1 drop-down players that, for whatever reason, drop down to a level. There's super seniors that come down. There's players that are going to grad school that drop down. There's all kinds of reasons why you get a D1 drop-down to come, or maybe they just weren't getting ice time at the higher level. And then you've got null guys. You've got NCDC guys. You're not getting the same level and depth on an ACHA team. So as much as I like ACHA hockey, it's like saying that, oh, yeah, there's a D3 team that can beat a D1 team. Yeah, maybe there is once in a while. Maybe there's a team that on any given Sunday, they say, could beat a NCAA Division I team. But over the course of time, it just isn't going to happen very often. It's a rare occurrence. So let's just cut the talk about that. It's not a reality. It's just not a reality. As from a parent's perspective, I get it. You stick up for where your kid's playing. You've watched a couple ACHA games. You go, that's really good quality hockey. I don't watch as much ACHA. I've watched a lot of the tops. I've been to their championships. They used to have their championships here in Rochester. I used to go all the time to the championship games. And to be honest with you, I had two junior teams at the time. And, we easily were at the same level with our second junior team as most of the teams that are playing ACHA hockey. A lot of those guys don't have junior experience. A lot of those players don't now. I know I'm going to get ripped on this a little bit. I know I've got good friends that are ACHA coaches that are going to say, Jeff, you're being a little harsh there. I'm not being harsh. I'm just calling the spade a spade on this and making sure that we look at this the right way. So anyway, getting back to what you can do to prepare, you got to start thinking juniors. You got to start thinking if you're not ready for juniors, then it's ACHA hockey that you should start reaching out to and starting to think about that after your senior year. So here's another question. What are the options for an 05 player who currently plays 16 AA this year and wants to try to make a U18 AA team next year, or AAA team next year, I should say. Let me throw it up on the screen. Next year as a 17-year-old, do U18 AAA teams mainly take 18-year-old players? The question is, first of all, thanks for the question. Great question. Jumping from AA to AAA is tough. You probably already know that. And finding a team that you can make, I don't know your stats. I don't know, I've just got the information you gave me. So I would say right off the bat, if you're playing 16 AA, if you want to play AAA hockey, you got to start making the wheels, greasing the wheels now. And when I say greasing the wheels, that means get the momentum going, get everything going in the direction of AAA hockey. You got to be reaching out to any team you can that is AAA within your realm. And when I say that, some people will only look in their own city or their own rink. Other people will look in their region of their state or the region of a couple states that are around their house. Others look at whatever area they're at, the Midwest, the East, the West, and others open it up globally wherever they can go. I can't answer the question for you on how big you should be looking and reaching out, but you need to reach out and start asking questions about tryouts and ask tryout questions right now. Get your list of 10, 15, 20 schools, call those coaches. Tell me a little bit about your tryout process. That's legal. You can ask questions about when are your tryouts, where can I get information, who do I contact? And if they're doing their job right, legally, they can go, tell me about yourself. Okay, you're coming out of 16 and you're going into your first year of U18 hockey. First of all, the majority of teams this year, what are we at? Are we at 04s, 05s right now at U18? I think that's what we're at right now. Yeah, there's a mix of 04s and 05s. Actually, is it 03s and 04s or 04s and 05s? I gotta look now and just reacquaint myself. So it's 0304 is the majority. 0304 is the majority right now. So if it's 0304 is the majority, and you're in 05, you're going to be 0405 next year. You'll be fine. That's the breakdown of what U18 is about, and you'll be a first year U18. Make a team. Okay, make a team. Get on a U18 team that's playing AAA, whatever it takes in whatever area. Then the goal is to, if that team's good enough, to move up with that, or to find a team that's better for the next year as you ascend. Okay, and the whole idea is to try to get up as high as you can in the rankings to the best team you can, to maximize your ability to be seen, to be recruited, and to make it to the next level. Okay, the whole idea on this is positioning. Positioning. Can you find a home coming off a mid-tier team? Of course you can. Of course you can. And one thing I didn't share with you that I think is possible, is important for you to know is there's a ton of these teams. We talk all the time about, positioning. Everybody knows that the NAPHL has 4 or 5 strong teams. You've got your North Star Christian Academy. You've got your Car Shields. You've got your Reapers. You've got your Big B, Esmark. There's some programs out there. Philly, and there's another one I'm missing in the Midwest. But there's programs like that are, when I say strong, they're consistently in that top 40, top 50 in the nation. Those teams are getting a lot of recognition in the tender process because they're part of the NAPHL. So if you're not a tier 1 elite level player, getting into the NAPHL still gives you an opportunity to move up and get recognized and get some ability to put yourself into a spot where you can get tendered or drafted. Because remember, the next step of all this process is once the tenders are done, then the whole draft process comes back around again in June. So you're not, it's not over because there's already 180 kids picked, 184 kids picked in the NAHL tender process. Because remember, all these teams are going to come back around and actually start drafting players that fulfill their needs to build their roster for next year too. So if a team like the North Star Christian Academy is already put out 10 kids into the tender process, there might be another 5, 6, 7 kids that go in the draft process too. And remember, as soon as they're done, the league needs to draft players all the way down. Does that mean you'll make a roster? No, it doesn't mean you'll make a roster, but it gets you into main camp. And if you're in main camp and you do happen to make it to the fall roster, that gives you even more opportunity to place yourself, because then all of a sudden you're an NAHL kid. Oh, he was in the NAHL. Okay, he got drafted. He got tendered. So whatever other junior league you end up at, you're carrying that moniker. You're carrying that tattoo, that chevron on your shoulder of the null, just like a USHL kid. USHL kid makes it through main camp, makes it in the fall, maybe gets a couple exhibition games under his belt and then gets trimmed down and goes in the null. When he goes to the null, the coach introduces as a kid that came from the USHL. The other players look at him as a player that just came from the USHL. So that's a big confidence boost, and that's a big assistance when you move in and transition into a team if you are trimmed down or cut after main camp or the fall camp. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? Andy, I hope that helps a little bit on your question. And no, you don't, the teams are usually, remember, all these U18 teams want to have a strong team year after year. They don't try to load up with all last year players. They want those younger players too, because those younger players are the ones that get tendered and drafted just as much, if not more, and get attention from the USHL or get attention from the NUL or the BCHL. So they want young and old when they're building rosters and mixing rosters. And to be honest with you, I as a coach would never want to have all kids that are 18 years old on a U18 team. I'd want it to be mixed because it's that much easier to build and have a tradition. Your systems are known by half your team, how you play, your style. Leadership all comes from having, half or as close to half as your team that's consistent for 2 years, if at all possible. So you'll see teams that are pretty much split down the middle. Let's see other questions we got here. What do you think? What do you think about going right to juniors from high school versus going to play D2 college hockey? Well, first of all, it doesn't happen that way. Okay, you can go play ACHA D2 because remember, ACHA club hockey has D1, D2, D3 club hockey, and playing D2 is a pretty good step up in the ACHA ranks. They got some great quality coaches, and they've got some great quality players there. So you could probably step out and play there. Remember, there's only a handful. I think it's 4 or 6 teams that are truly D2 in the NCAA world, and they all play. Well, I shouldn't say they all play, but they play kind of in their own league, and they're for lack of better ways of putting it, they really are looked at as D3 level teams. The players that are being recruited to those schools are considered D3 level players. So D2 doesn't really exist in the hockey world when you consider there's 60 plus NCAA Division I, there's 80, 90 NCAA Division IIs. There's only this many, whatever the number is of truly D2 programs. I can do a story on that or a piece on what D2 is, but really I'm assuming you're talking about, Colleen, playing D2 ACHA hockey. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of kids, absolutely a lot of kids. I've got a good friend, Michael Hermbrat from Illinois. He's part of our group. He's part of our discussion group. He's one of our experts that will answer questions on there. The majority of kids he gets are coming right out of high school, usually playing high-level Tier 1 hockey, and they jump over to his program, and so they can start their college careers. And he's got a lot of success with those kids. Don't get me wrong, they've got kids coming out of the NAL on that team too. They got some kids that have been USHL players, but the majority are coming right out of high school. That's the difference between ACHA and NCAA hockey. Let's see what we got here. Talk to the D3 coach he's interested in. Be prepared for the coach to tell you to go play juniors. Yep. Okay. So somebody's already answering this on the board. So thank you for helping me answer some of these questions. So here's one. Would you recommend 18U AAA over Tier 3 juniors for a 2004 next season? Player has only played high school, has a good size overall. So there's a lot to factor into this, but my answer to this is this is just the most blunt way I can put this. I will not watch a premier game this year. I do this for a living. I will not watch an EHL game this year. I do this for a living. I will watch Tier 1 players every single day. Okay? Video, live. Now, when I say I don't watch, I mean, if I know I've got a friend or a coach I know that says, hey, watch this kid over in the Premier League, or somebody sends me a clip, I'll watch that. But I'm not actively searching for Tier 3 players. NA3 is built into the system. Most likely NA3 picks are going to come from your farm program. For example, we have an NA3 team in our system. So I'm not watching that. I'm letting the coaches that are near that program figure that out. I'm only focused on U18, as is the majority of the people in this industry. Not much effort is put into looking at the junior levels, the Tier 3 junior levels. We'll look at the NCDC, we'll look at all the Canadian junior leagues, but we won't look much at those other leagues, just because the logic is, a U18 player is playing. If you're still playing U18 and you're playing in a showcase, if you're playing in the championships, it doesn't matter if you're playing AYH, you're playing Beast, you're playing NAPHL, you're playing Tier 1 Elite, HPHL. All those leagues are drawing attention from D1, D3 schools and juniors. So you're putting yourself in a situation. If you're in the Tier 1 Elite League, you might not be on the best team, but you'll be playing in Blaine in just like the teams. I think they're there right now. In fact, I know they are right now. I just watched a game earlier today. I watched Milwaukee play, and I watched Victory Honda play earlier. And I can't remember who was playing who. I just remember there's certain kids I was trying to watch. Anyway, I say that the odds of getting good exposure and good competition and consistency are going to come from the Tier 1 Elite leagues. Now, you can always say, oh, there's some weak teams there. Yeah, but there's a lot of weak Tier 3 teams too. I would say if you have that opportunity, move that direction. Now, there's a caveat to that. If you're playing with a great coach in a tier 3 junior organization, if you're playing for a top team in a junior organization, or you choose that as your league of destination. I know a lot of kids that go to the EHL. I know a lot of kids that go to Premier. I know a lot of kids that go to the NA3HL and stay there for 2 to 3 years and move on and play college hockey. And their intention was that's the league they're going to play in. They're fine with that, and they're going to move on and progress from there. And they do, and they're successful. Maybe the first year they're a 20-point guy, and the next year they're a 30 or 40-point guy. Maybe they got a chance to go to the NAL, or maybe they got a chance to go to the NCDC, and it didn't work out. They came back to their team, and they were successful. That happens all the time. You can be successful at Tier 3 hockey. If you're looking for exposure to get up to Division 3 and Division 1 exposure level consistently, staying at U18 really makes sense if you can play for a league that gets you exposed. Good showcases, good playoffs, and usually some kind of affiliation doesn't hurt. That affiliation with the NAPHL has. HPHL has an affiliation with the USHL. The Tier 1 Elite has an affiliation with everybody. You just want to put yourself in a good spot there. AYHL and prep leagues like the Beast. Just across the board, you want to just put yourself in the best situation. My recommendation is if you can play high caliber Tier 1 Elite, go that route. If not, you want to look for a great coach and a great organization. When I say a great coach, consistency and track record. A great coach is some guy just is, oh, he's great. Look at his practices. Look at his practices. He looks great out there in practice. That's wonderful. Having a practice coach is wonderful. Having a coach that gets on the phone. I work for a guy right now. He's on the phone after games. He's on the phone before games. He gets on the phone between periods of his games talking to people. Are you watching our game? You got to make sure you're watching so-and-so. He's having a really good night tonight. That's the kind of junior coach you want. Now, of course, he's at a high level, but at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting texts and emails from him talking about players. And I look at it, I go back to bed. I'm not dealing with that at that time of night, but that's a coach that's connected to everybody. That's the kind of coach you want. And they exist at the Tier 3 level, but if you're going to play at that level, you want a guy that's connected to just as many college coaches as possible and has a reputation of kicking players up. And I've told you how to do this in the past. Do some reverse engineering. Look at their rosters. Look where they're placing kids. Look at some of the colleges you like and see if what junior programs they're pulling kids from. It's easy to do. It takes some time, but it's easy to do. You can do that and make it work. So thanks for that question. I hope that helps a little bit. Let's go on to the next one and see what we got here. What's the best way to find a team where the coach is known to develop players and move upward to juniors? So there's two different things there you just said. Developing players and moving players to juniors. Okay, some of the best coaches out there don't do diddly for developing. What they do is they bring just a stable in of great players, and they can win games with a stable of great players, and they can move guys on because they're connected and move the phone. There's salesmen that are hockey coaches. They're out there. They exist at every level, even NCAA Division I coaches. There's coaches that are much, much better at selling players than there are at developing players. So I'd be careful when you say, I want a development coach, because developing skills at juniors doesn't happen as much as competing at juniors. Okay, learning to compete, learning to be a veteran, learning to handle the game at that level is so much more important. And that happens, it's just a cumulative thing that happens with a player. When my youngest played junior hockey when he was a first-year player, he had all the energy in the world, lots of skill, actually put up good numbers, but didn't understand how to be a veteran until the second and third year of juniors. Then his leadership took over, and he turned into he just transformed into a whole different style of player that elevated him into the college ranks. That happens with the majority of junior players. He had some really, really good and really, really bad junior coaches. I mean, he had a couple horrible junior coaches and a couple great ones. And some of the great ones weren't really good on ice coaches. What they're really good at is picking up the phone and calling coaches and going, you should see this kid play. Hey, while you're here watching our goalie, check out this kid. And that's what happens there. So, getting back to your question, what's the best way to find a team where the coach is known for developing players, you've got to get in the trenches and ask questions, okay? And I can't answer that because there's a couple hundred Tier 3 junior teams out there now. I don't keep up with every single Tier 3 junior coach and how well they're doing and what their reputation is. Of course I know, the guys that have been around forever. Of course I know guys in the major programs. But what I'm saying on that is the majority, it works the way we talk about. Even at Tier 3, you take the guys on the top, they're usually on top because they recruit great players. Where do great players that have been recruited, what do? They win games. They win games, they get noticed. They're always in the top of the area. Top players, first, second, third place teams are usually the ones that jump up to the next level the fastest. So the first thing I would do is start off with looking at the rankings. Look at the league standings, look at my hockey rankings, and start picking off the coaches on the top. Those are the ones that, for whatever reason, if they're consistent, you can go back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and find consistency in these guys and go, okay, that makes sense. That guy looks like he knows what he's doing as far as placing players. Skill development is overrated at juniors, okay? When coaches say I develop skills, first of all, you got 4 practices a week, you hour and a half, 2 hours, you got 30 guys. Do the math on how much time is actually being spent on skills versus power play, penalty kill, conditioning, and just walking through systems. There's not as much breaking down the skills as you think at the junior level that you want to. So hopefully that helps a little bit. All right, let's see another question here. In your experience, how do you value a player that wears an A or a C as an evaluator? Does that matter in the metrics that you use? Absolutely. Absolutely. You want, right now, what I look for. Remember, I think I've talked a little bit about this, and if I haven't, I want to, and I want to get this screen out of the way because I'm looking at my own face, and I don't like really looking at my own face versus looking at the camera. So I start off the year trying to see as many games as I can possibly see everywhere. I started off the year Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago, back to Boston, back to Detroit, up to Toronto, back to Detroit, back to Chicago. I was all over the place. Ohio a couple of times, Pennsylvania a few times, and then a lot in New York. And that's normal. Boom, 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 boom. Amass as much information on the 04, 03 crowd as you can. So we got our young guys figured out for the year. Not when I say that, we've got a structure of where we think our young guys fit in, the young guys we're pulling into the organization. Then I go back and I start looking at it now. In that matrix, probably a good 60 to 70% of them are wearing a letter. They're in a leadership position. The next step after that, in fact, maybe that number is even higher. It might be up 80% of the young guys that we're planning on having a part of our organization. Now I'm going back and I'm looking for veteran juniors that are playing in the junior ranks. And I told you, we're looking, you look at all the other leagues, the NCDC, the Canadian leagues, and you're saying, okay, what can a junior player offer us? And we're looking at the players that are leaders. The majority of the time they have a letter on them. Yes, absolutely. That's big. I can tell you the one thing that's overrated, coaches always try to spin it with their parents about, well, what are your grades like? Well, yeah, we ask about grades, but grades aren't really going to matter at the junior level for us to win. The grades are to show that you've put your effort into it to do what you have to do to get to college. So if I say, what are your grades? And you say, 2.5, that's a leadership thing. That's a maturity thing. That means that, because any kid that works hard enough, if he just grinds at his grades, he should be a B student minimum. If he just grinds at it, is mature about it. Coming from a kid that when I was that age wasn't. I mean, I got hockey taken away from me my freshman year because I was a varsity athlete at a big high school, a big hockey high school. And I walked around with a varsity coat on and thought that hockey was my world and didn't worry about classes. Mid-semester grades came out. My parents yanked me from hockey, and it was the most humbling experience I ever had. But what it did was it forced me to start focusing on my grades and pulling my grades up and putting myself in a situation where I could potentially play college hockey. I only say that because, leadership comes in many different forms when we're looking at it. High grades, a C on the jersey, what you're doing. We come and watch, little things. if I see a kid straw the locker room last at a practice when I'm going to watch, that's not a leader. I don't care if he's got a A or a C on his jersey at all. I watch a guy that gets out there early, helps set the nets up, maybe brings the pucks out, brings the water bottles out. He's the last one off the ice picking up pucks. I don't care if he's got a C or an A on. That's a kid that's got a little bit more of a leadership quality that we're looking at. So grades, if anybody's trying to say, oh, we're an academic junior program, I don't believe that. You look at grades to make sure a kid understands that it's his responsibility to get those grades high enough, ACT scores high enough so that they can succeed at college. It really isn't going to factor in much to your time at juniors, except for it's a check mark for us to say the kid's mature enough to understand what he's got to do to be, to make it to the next level. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that doesn't sound too crass on answering about that. Let's see. Somebody came back in and said, I meant going from U16 to U18 probably for a couple of years in order to get ready for juniors. Hearing some of your previous answers was helpful. Okay, good. I'm glad we got to that one. Could you give any information on schools that could be adding Division I varsity teams? Look, when I get information, I post it on Junior Hockey Advisor, the page. There is no, I know Illinois is really close. You hear about Arizona. There's another school in Minnesota that's talking about it. There's somebody else on the East Coast, I can't remember which program it was, that's talking about it. But nothing, when it comes out and there's a press release, I post them right away, and I'd be glad to talk about it. The last couple of years, I've posted a lot of things on Illinois and other programs that have thought about it that haven't done it yet. So I don't have much to tell you right now. As soon as I do, I'll be glad to post that or get that information onto you and share it across the board. I like sharing that information if I've got it. So, hey, listen, I want to wrap it up unless there's any other question. Okay, hang on. At least 50% of D3 rosters are Tier 3 kids. Absolutely. So this comment came in, at least 50% of D3 rosters are Tier 3 junior kids. Absolutely. That's the purpose of it. But if you break it down even more, there's a lot of premier teams out there. They're coming from the top premier teams. Think about how many premier teams are there now. It seems like there's 1,000. I know I'm joking, but there's a lot of premier hockey out there. There's a lot of NA3 teams out there, but nowhere near. I mean, there's a fraction of the amount of NA3 teams to premier. But if you look where those Tier 3 kids are coming from, EHL leads the way. And remember, when you look at those Tier 3 or those Division 3 rosters, there is a huge chunk of NAHL players in that too, because the NAHL still sends 100 to 200 players each year to D3 hockey. They usually end up in the Norwiches, the Geneseos, the Uticas, the Adrians, Stevens Point, Wisconsin River Falls. I can tell you the 10 programs that the most Lanall kids go to because that's statistically where they all end up. But you're absolutely right. That's a good comment. That there is a lot of kids. There's a ton of kids that go that direction. So let me see if I get another question or two. What can I do to get my son looked at the coaches? Looked at. The coaches will never call the junior coaches to get him looked at. Okay, I'm going to read that again and see. Let's see. What can I do to get my son looked at that coaches will never call the junior coaches to get him looked at? Look, if you want college coaches to look at you, you've got to reach out. And, so marketing your players is great. And I talk about marketing all the time. But the realistic side of it is if I'm playing Tier 3 hockey on the East Coast, Tier 3 junior hockey on the East Coast, and I'm reaching out to Minnesota and North Dakota and the University of Michigan to play Division I hockey, most likely they're not going to come out and watch me play. The realism is that your talent has to meet the level you're trying to reach out to. There's a bandwidth. So if I'm playing Tier 3 junior hockey and I'm reaching out to the D3 schools that are East Coast bound because their budget allows them to recruit and go watch players on the East Coast, there's a good chance I'm going to get some reception to that and get looked at. So if my level of play is good enough to play at that level and I'm not getting looked at, that just means I've got to amp up how much I'm reaching out. You can only rely on your coach, your junior coach, to do so much. You can only rely on your advisor to do so much. You can only rely on your skills guy to help you out so much if you got a skills coach. The rest of it's got to be you. I mean, the emphasis should always be on the player. Advisors reach out to me and talk about their players. Yeah, I talk to some advisors once or twice a week. Okay. I talk to players that want to play for us sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. They're either emailing me, texting me, phone calling me, or I see them at the rink. Okay. You need to push if that's where you want to go. Not everybody's going to get there. Talent. That's, I can't overcome talent by being a great marketer. Now there'll be some kids that can market the shit out of themselves, sorry, pardon my French, and get themselves to the next level. But for the most part, it's got to be market yourself and back it up with some talent. Okay. Regardless of what level your team on. Greg, thanks. Hey, good to see you from Amherstburg, Ontario. If you don't know how to get there, you start in Detroit, you cross the bridge, turn right, you'll find it. Okay, Jim, thanks for being on board tonight. Do you have to go AAA to go to juniors or high level AA? Okay, so the question is, can I play AA hockey and get to juniors? You're not going to get to AA. I know of one guy in the North American Hockey League that was a AA player. He's playing for Shreveport right now, that successfully made the jump from AA and stuck and made it. It is extremely rare. Okay, 29 teams, do the math, 750, 800 kids. By the time the season's over with kids moving up and down and U18 players coming in and out, the NAL probably processes through 1,000 kids that have been in rosters. So one AA kid in 2 years that I know of, I'll probably be, chastised for missing the 3 or 4 other ones, but it's one kid that I know of in 2 years. So if that's 2,000 kids, you do the math on that. You're not going to play at that level. Can you play junior hockey out of AA? Absolutely. You can play tier 3 junior hockey coming out of AA hockey. I've seen some kids have really, really fun times playing junior hockey and then moving on to ACHA from AA. The rare occasion a kid goes into junior hockey at a low-level tier 3 and moves up out of the AA ranks. You're against the 8 ball when you get to that age on trying to catch up on so many other experiences that some of these other kids have had and playing against super fast kids all the time. Super big, super fast kids that have high hockey IQs. Coming out of AA, you just don't experience that a lot, so you're playing catch-up. So it can be done, and it's a lot of hard work. I know the kid that's out of Shreveport works his tail off and had to work his tail off, and he paid his dues. Didn't get there right away. He sat and watched a lot of hockey before he was actually playing. So question about USPHL versus for AAA. Once again, just do your homework. There's some good USPHL AAA teams. They're fewer and far between in that league, but you got to be on one of the top teams. That's just all. If you're going to play in that league, you got to play for one of the top teams to be able to progress to the next level. Let's see what else we got here. When do USHL teams start talking to draft picks about camps for next year? Well, there's 2 different things there. It's a great question. USHL. When does USHL reach out to you? You could be drafted by a USHL team and never have them talk to you once. Why? Because of the USHL. They know if they draft you, you're not going to say no. Okay, that's just the way it is. Unless you're that good where you might go to the OHL or go play in the Quebec League. No, the USHL doesn't necessarily have to call you ahead of time. BCHL, NAL, they'll call you. They'll work with you. They'll see that you want to go there. They'll want to see if you're aligned with their way of thinking. The USHL, they'll triangulate behind the scenes. They'll talk to your coaches. They'll talk to your mailman. They'll talk to everybody. It's almost like you're getting an FBI screening for a government job with some of these USHL teams. They do their homework, okay, but they don't necessarily reach out to you. Some of the programs will reach out to players that are not going to be draft picks, but they still want to see what you can do, okay? Or they reach out to, let's say you've got your team in Muskegon, Michigan. Muskegon will probably invite Big Fox Motors, Victory Honda, Little Caesars, and kids out of CompuWare out of the Detroit Metro and southeast West Michigan areas to come to their camps. And they'll invite probably 5 or 10 kids from each of those teams to come fill out their camps, along with their draft picks and their veteran players. That's not uncommon to see that kind of invitation. Then they'll have other kids they invite around too. So getting invitations from a USHL team is different from them having you on their draft list. You may never get drafted from them. And in fact, you might be a draft consideration for a USHL team and not get invited to their pre-draft skates. Now, clearly, if you get drafted, you might not even get an email saying, "Hey, we're inviting you to our main camp," because once you get drafted, you're expected to be there. Then the coach calls you up. When my son was drafted to the USHL, we thought he was going to be drafted by a different team. Saw the phone call come in, picked it up. It was the coach or the general manager from the team he got drafted by, and said, "Look, I'm going to email you right now all the information about when we expect you to be here." There was no like, "What do you think? Do you want to play for us?" It was like, "No, you're drafted in the USHL. That's the best league. If you get drafted there, you're going to go." So 2 different things there: pre-drafts and main camp invitations and drafts. You don't necessarily have to worry about getting a call from a USHL team if you're going to get drafted. Now, some do. Some will take the time to call you ahead of time and say, "What do you think?" But the reason why they don't is because they don't have control over that. They could put all their apples over here and say, "We want to draft this kid, and we're going to call this kid," and get beat to the punch by the team that drafts right before them. So they'll have their pool of players that they want, but they might not reach out to everyone and talk to them beforehand. So hopefully that helped. Okay. Last question, and we got 4 minutes, and it's 1 hour. So the last question of the night is, what do you think about PG year at U18? I can tell you this. I didn't think I was a fan of it. And then I watch, I'll give you an example of a team. I watch Victory Honda, and I watch what Coach Burke does with his Victory Honda team, and he always has kids that stay for the PG year. And not every one of them. I mean, this year he's going to lose a lot to tenders and drafts. But the kids, he's always got second-year PG kids that are there that 1 year after high school. And a lot of them still, play at extremely high levels. I can probably name in the last few years at least 3, 4, 5 kids that came out of just that program, played that year after high school, and still went on to play Division I college hockey. Some kids need that extra time. And don't forget, if that kid stays and plays PG at a high-level Tier 1 team, I got to stress that. It's got to be a high-level team, good coach. Most likely he's going to be a leader, okay? And even if he's not wearing a letter, he's going to be a leader. The second thing is he's still going and getting showcased for juniors and getting showcased for right now. When I go watch, any of the great Tier 1 teams, the U18 teams, and I could be watching any one of the leagues in North America and watching U18 hockey. The last thing I'm looking at during the game is what year he is, if he's a 17 or 18-year-old, or is he a high school senior, or did he graduate last year? I'll look at that after the fact, but if he's good enough, do I want a younger guy? Of course you get more years out of him at the junior level. But if you're really good and we get you for 1 year next year and the year after, 2 years versus 3, I'm still really, really interested in you, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Great question. Oh, boy. Do I have time for it? Yeah, okay, I'll try one more. So my son has the option for the USHL and OHL. OHL team has been in constant contact with my son. Do you see any headway on the NCAA OHL thing? Listen, nobody knows what's going on with the NCAA. I think the NCAA has made a huge mistake on how they rolled out this whole name, image, likeness deal where players can get paid or be sponsored by products and endorsed products. It's a fiasco because now it puts egg on their face to the hockey world, because the hockey world's been telling people forever, you can't be a pro. Well, if I'm making $1,000 a week or $1,000 a month, even $1,000 a year playing football or basketball and endorsing products, am I any less of a pro than the guy playing in the OHL? The answer is no. Now it's silly to distinguish college hockey, college basketball, or college football by amateur versus pro status. So I don't know where this is going. No, I can't answer that. I can tell you this. I don't understand any reason why or any logic, unless you are poor in academics, or unless you're a potential first or second round NHL draft pick. In other words, because you've already been talking to pro scouts and you've been talking to the management of some of the NHL teams, which happens with kids coming out of 16 hockey that are on that track, they get an idea that where they fit, and they're kind of steered towards things. Unless I've got the Detroit Red Wings saying, you know what, we really want to see you play in the OHL next year because, that's where we're going to draft from. We want you playing for this coach. He's going to do the best for you. Unless that conversation's happened, why would anybody turn down the USHL? USHL pumps out more than any other league per player, per team, pumps out more draft picks than any other league. The OHL is good, but it takes all three of those leagues to compete against what the USHL does. Of course, a lot of those numbers are because of the national training program, but you're playing against kids from the national training program. So when you play the national training program, you've got more scouts in the stands, more college scouts in the stands, more NHL scouts in the stands. So yes, the OHL is a good old boy network, and the OHL has its place, and it's been established for years, and people still think that's the greatest junior hockey ever. Until they get involved with the USHL and they go, holy smokes, what's going on here? This just turned everything upside down. Look at the drafts over the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know why anybody would look anywhere else than the USHL. If you're an American, you're a Canadian, it's a different story, because if you're a Canadian, you've been instilled with that as being a process that you want to go down that road from day one. I want to, you grew up watching one of the OHL teams. You grew up knowing people that played OHL hockey. You grew up wanting to be an OHL player. It's in your blood. It's different. Okay. So I get that. And you still have the Canadian the Canadian college process in place. If you want to go to school after you play in the OHL, you can do it either way. But, for me, the way I see the world is I just don't know why, if you're really top level, why you would look at anything other than the USHL. That's just an opinion. Believe me, there's just as many people that would disagree with that as agree with it. Maybe not as many disagreeing, but there's some valid arguments for the other side, but that's the way I see the world. So I hope that helps a little bit. Anything good to hear you're on and watching tonight. That's it, folks. That's all I got for tonight. I think we covered a lot. Hopefully this helped a little bit. A lot of things coming up in the spring. Hope I gave you a little bit of information you can run with. Please, YouTube, subscribe, like us. Please go to our Facebook page and our discussion group and subscribe and like us. Anything you can do to help sure helps. I mean, even you don't think it's a big deal for us, but it is. Every time we get a subscribe, a bell rings in heaven. And we need those things. We need a little positivity around here. No, we're trying to grow this. We're trying to do this and keep this running, but we need to see growth at all times for us to keep this rolling. So thanks for watching tonight. We'll see you next Sunday. Take care.